Hey guys, this part of the video was recorded after I recorded the initial part of the video, but I'm recording this as a warning. So this manga does contain a lot of blood and some sexual themes, but that's anime for you. But for the blood part, there is a lot of it in this manga, so I'm going to be showing some of it in this video. So with that being said, viewer discretion is advised. So let's get into the actual video. Alright, so this is going to be my thoughts on the records of Ragnarok. So with that being said, let's just roll the intro.
Bow in the presence of greatness, 'cause right now that has forsaken us. You should be honored by my lateness, that I would even show up to this fake shit. So go ahead, go nuts, go.
So many of you might not know, but the Records of Ragnarok, which I'm talking about right now, is a manga series that started in late 2017 and is running to the present day and continues to I don't really see that. It's pretty early in the story is what I'm trying to say, but yeah. So with that being said, let's talk about this actual plot so you guys can get interested in the plot and why I really like this series, but I'll talk about that a little bit later. So what is the Records of Ragnarok called? So just like the name suggests, Ragnarok, it's a pretty big event involving many gods. So what type of gods are involved? Well, this series is a universe in where it shares multiple pantheons, and by pantheon I mean basically multiple systems of gods or multiple gods being in one area, so from different religions and ideologies. So the main gods or the main pantheons that are in this are the Greek, Hindu, and Japanese, I believe, and there's some Chinese, and just basically gods from all different forms and pantheons, what I'm trying to say. So this series is about gods versus humans, and that premise alone is pretty interesting, but what exactly are they fighting? Or why are they fighting, and why are they fighting for? So this series is a tournament series, so that therefore is humans versus gods in a tournament. But why are they doing it? So they're doing this to basically judge the fate of humanity, almost kind of like Mortal Kombat in a way, but a little bit different. So the reason why they're fighting is basically the gods have this kind of meeting that they do once every 1,000 years, and at this meeting they decide whether or not humans should live or not. And in this meeting they decide the fact, and in this particular case they decide that they no longer want humanity to live. They want to try again with a different animal, so they decide to go with that. But one Valkyrie actually steps up to the plate to challenge the gods in a really spectacular way, and I'll get into that right now. So this Valkyrie is Brunhild or something like that. I'm sorry, it's a Norse name and I can't really pronounce it that well, but for the sake of this review, I'll call her Brun. So Brun is the second, I believe she's the oldest Valkyrie out of the 13 sisters. So she challenges the gods, and she basically finds a loophole within the system that lets humans have a fighting chance, because if you don't know, in Norse mythology, it's their jobs to basically look out for great warriors and to really guide souls, and that's why they're really protective towards humanity and would really want to protect them. So it makes sense if you're looking at that as a through the eyes of a kind of historian or someone who really enjoys mythology. So she wants to challenge the gods, and she does the loophole called Ragnarok, which basically gives the ability for humans to fight back. It's a tournament kind of thing that was put in the book for as jokes, right? Because the gods obviously know that they would win in most circumstances against humans, so as a little joke they added this in, but she's actually using this to their advantage to give humanity a fighting chance. So you might be wondering, if these gods are almighty and they're supposed to be representatives of gods that we have in real life, like I said before, this is a multi-pantheon kind of world in where gods of all kind of religions and ideologies kind of live, then how are they going to win? How are humans even going to scratch a god, someone like Zeus, which is a major god in the series? So, if you don't know, like I said, Valkyries look out for warriors. So they go throughout history from the beginning all the way to the end, and they find the best humans that ever lived. And that's what they do. They get a collection of 13 humans to go against 13 gods. But here's the kicker, right? You're still asking yourself, how can a human beat them? So since there's 13 gods, 13 humans, and 13 Valkyries, the Valkyries themselves turn into divine weapons for the humans to use, and therefore give them some sort of divine attacks. So they're able to hurt gods, because normally gods would not be able to get hurt by anything that's not divine, or if they're made by mortal hands. And that's why they're able to, get hurt by this. So this is a kind of series that will always put you on edge, because like I said before, it's a tournament kind of arc, or a tournament kind of story. So each fight has a lot of impact within it, right? So because this isn't gonna be a kind of story for people that think that has no consequences, something like you see in a lot of modern kind of mediocre kind of manga or anime, in where there's no real consequences to them losing, or it's very rare that they lose, or even anything like that, right? But this has a lot of consequences, because this is a fight to the death. Each fight is a fight to the death between gods and humans. Not only that, but the closer they are to losing, the closer they are to being erased. Not just them, but also humans. Humanity itself has a chance of being completely erased. Not only that, but if you lose during these fights, your soul no longer exists. It gets wiped out of existence. And that's why these fights have so much impact. Not only that, but these fights are very brutal. And especially in some cases in where arms are ripped off, bones break, a lot of things like that. So if you're interested in that kind of, a world and where it's kind of dark and has a lot of consequences, you can go and do that. You could go and read it. But I'll get into a little bit more specific things that I particularly like in a second. One thing I very much like is the art style. So it has this kind of it has like correct proportions for a human, and obviously these are idealistic proportions, right? They're ideal proportions, so it makes sense with gods, right? If you go back to things like Greek culture or Roman culture, mostly Greek, but a little bit at the beginning of Roman culture, you'll see that these are idealistic figures. They're ideals. They are supposed to be the perfect human form, and that's what you see in a lot of these characters, at least for the god side, and a little bit for the humans. But yeah, there's also this part that will happen sometimes, in where a character will get a lot of detail in their faces, and this is usually to emphasize dramatic parts and to do things like that. But there's also parts in where the artist uses some sort of like line shading, and where it looks kind of like scribbles, but it's supposed to intensify the scene by a lot, and you get the idea that it's losing form, or it's becoming more than it is because of how it's been shaded, or you understand that it becomes more deadly, if that makes sense. Another thing I like is basically the idea of having modern interpretations of gods, right? Because a lot of times people are shy to do that kind of stuff, right? So most media nowadays that have mythology and things like that, it usually sticks to the Greek and Western kind of mythologies, because a lot of people are scared to really do that kind of stuff because they find it offensive, or they don't want to be offended, or they don't want to offend anyone. And that's why, if you ever heard of a game called Smite, I believe near the beginning there was a kind of controversy with one of the Hindu gods. I believe her name was Kali, and they really had to, like, there was just so many hoops and things like that they had to go through to actually have her in the game, or basically not get so much outrage. So it's nice to see that something like this isn't really getting too much controversies, and they're actually able to include gods from different mythologies such as Hindu, and it is a very cool idea to see all these different gods interact. And if you understand or know some of the mythologies, it's kind of interesting to see how they would react. So that's a very, very good plus for me, and I think a lot of people would also. If you play something like Smite and where there's literal gods against gods, you'll get to see it's just a cool, right? It's cool that you see gods that you like maybe in game, and you get to see interact with each other. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, another thing is that the writer is really good with expectations, right? Because you really don't know when a character is going to win or lose. It's never, I will say this, it's never clear in which way it's going to favor, whether it's gods or humans. And you're always hoping that the humans are going to win, but then something happens and they don't, or maybe they do and you didn't want that. It's just all over the place, and it's a roller coaster of emotions that you feel, and then you just don't want to get off the ride, if that makes sense. It's just a really good series and how it writes its fights. So yeah, with that being said, I don't want to make this video too long. Pretty short, only 10 minutes. So with that being said, this is going to be the video. If you made it to the end of the video, please give it a like. Like I said before, if you made it to the end of the video, if you want to support the channel, you can comment down to CS so I know you made it to the end. If you want to support the channel other ways, you could go to my Patreon at patreon.com/ComicSansTheMan, or you could go to the description down below. So with that being said, let's shout out the patrons over on Patreon. So like I said, if you want to see these videos early, or you want to support the channel, you can go to my Patreon. But you don't have to. That's just up to you. So let's go from our gold tier to our platinum. So in our gold tier we have Isaiah Perez and Lyco. In our platinum tier we have PandaMan 8. So if you want to join them, it'll be in the link in the description. So yeah, and if you read Ragnarok or the Records of Ragnarok, you can tell me down below what you thought of it. So with that being said, this is gonna be the video, and if you want to tell me something else, like other series to watch or review, you can tell me down below. So with that being said, this is gonna be the video. So yeah.